Hello. 20 years ago, as a teenager, I was fascinated with the deep sea and its rich diversity of life, thought to rival that found in rainforests. Yet the more I learned, the more I realized that the ocean environment was at a crossroads, a point where action was needed to put environmental protection ahead of exploitation. I was inspired by the actions of European decision-makers who at long last protected an important area of the deep sea. Such actions shaped my life and, more importantly, steered the destiny of the deep sea to a better place. This is a picture of me 20 years ago, in 2014, the day after the EU adopted a strong regime to protect the deep sea in the Northeast Atlantic. However, it all could have been so different. So let me show you how destructive the deep sea was then and the spectacular marine changes which have occurred as a result of action by the EU decision makers. At the time, the weak EU rules on deep sea fishing had led to massive destruction of vulnerable marine habitats, very high numbers of species caught as bycatch for a few wanted deep sea species, and even worse, most of the deep sea species were not subject to any catch limits whatsoever. In effect, this meant that badly regulated deep sea fisheries were not sustainable. In the Northeast Atlantic, deep sea corals that can live for over 1,000 years and provide homes to large populations of crustaceans, fish, and other sea life were being destroyed by fishing activities such as trawling the deep sea floor, endangering the integrity of these important habitats and the survival of the species living there. Again, when the new law was passed, there was very little information on how much habitat was being destroyed and how much still remained in terms of biodiversity that was under threat from fisheries in the deep sea. We knew that huge areas were being impacted. A single tow of a trawler's fishing net could drag across as much as 2 square kilometers of the deep seabed, and there were hundreds of, maybe thousands of deep sea trawl tows happening each year. It was a hugely depressing picture for all concerned with the future of the ocean environment and the deep sea. However, 20 years on, and it looks a whole lot different. Let me show you. Because the EU passed a strong law to protect the deep ocean in the Northeast Atlantic, fragile coral reefs and other deep sea habitats were given a respite from the trawlers and began to recover. Scientists have identified a strong link between healthy deep sea habitats and the ocean's ability to withstand disturbances associated with climate change and other human impacts. The protection of vulnerable marine ecosystems and species, together with putting an end to deep sea overfishing and the phase out of the most destructive fishing practices, help to resist these impacts. With a strong regulation in place, prompting a shift from destructive fishing to low impact and sustainable fisheries, deep sea fish stocks in the Northeast Atlantic have begun recovering beyond our expectations, with species such as orange ruffy, round-nosed grenadier, and species of deep sea sharks that were threatened with extinction in 2014, making a slow but purposeful comeback. The Northeast Atlantic is now better protected, enabling deep sea ecosystems to better survive the impacts of climate change and other threats to the ocean. New species have been discovered, and we are increasingly understanding the role of the deep sea within the health of the ocean generally and for our planet. Not only did the regulation help protect the environment, it also benefited small-scale fishing communities. for example, in the Azores and Madeira Islands that have traditionally fished deep-sea species, enabling them to flourish sustainably with long-term prospects for survival. Incredible, isn't it? And it all came about because members of the European Parliament and EU fishery ministers decided to put sustainability and environmental protection ahead of destructive exploitation. Just a couple of decades ago. What a truly amazing legacy. But it could have all been so different if MEPs and ministers hadn't done the right thing. It didn't seem like much at the time. Indeed, it was touch and go whether or not it would happen at all. But 20 years on, we now recognize it was one of the pivotal moments for the life and well-being of the ocean. So, will history show that you helped make this happen when it comes time to vote on the deep sea access regime?